The Nintendo DS line of systems are one of my favorite systems that I still play to this day and have thoroughly enjoyed for a large portion of my life. And we are now at the 20-year mark of the Nintendo DS systems. This bad boy came out in November 2004, and they actually announced it just that same year at their E3 press conference. Now, as you can tell, this system is rather ugly, and unfortunately, the one that I got on eBay is, heavily discolored and really gross. But I just needed to have one of these systems again because my original one was lost. So I didn't have one anymore, but found this one on eBay. It was like 15 bucks, I think, what I spent on it. But I don't really do any playing on here, but it's nice to just have this system and look back at what they originally released as their, new flagship handheld, which was not meant to replace the Game Boy Advance, but it ultimately ended up doing so. And one of the reasons they were so able to successfully replace the Game Boy Advance system was because it had a slot for Game Boy Advance games. So Nintendo was always really smart about that with their previous handhelds. They would always make sure that it was backwards compatible with the previous generation. So Game Boy games worked on the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Color and Game Boy games worked on the Game Boy Advance system. So it was natural that they were going to want to make sure people felt comfortable upgrading to this system and still be able to play their Game Boy Advance games. And one of my favorite things with this one was that the Game Boy Advance games fit so perfectly in there that you could always just have one with you. And we'll get later on into the other systems and you'll see obviously the difference there. But I think the original DS doesn't look great. It's pretty ugly. I mean, there were a variety of colors that were then available, but this was going to be your stock one that you would get here in the States. And I mean, overall, it's a very clunky design. Even when it's closed, like it's not, it doesn't look great. You would get the stylus back here. Unfortunately, this one didn't even come with one, but you'd grab the stylus from back here, and your DS slot was right here. But yeah, the original just for its day, it was fine. Obviously, it was nice that we finally had a backlit system, even though I know we had the Game Boy Advance SP and the Game Boy Micro, but the backlight on this was actually pretty terrible. It was not great. Obviously, it looks kind of nice here on the camera, but in person, it doesn't look great. And, the menu issues were that if you wanted to go into the menus to make any type of changes, even if you just clicked on that and said, oh, no, I don't really need this, the system was shut down. and that was that. So the UI, and I mean, unfortunately, that carried on to the next system as well, or the next revision. But you also had to, make sure that the system was off before you inserted any kind of game into it. And for some reason, it's not recognizing my Mario Kart here, which is strange. So we'll check that out right now. But yeah, I mean, for nostalgia purposes, this was a great system that I love, and I just look at it now and I'm like, man, yeah, this was pretty ugly, and it didn't really stand the test of time as far as, the style of it and the look of it. But the buttons felt great. Everything was in a good spot. It felt really nice. And like I said, my biggest thing that I loved about it was the GBA slot and how it sits so perfectly in there. But you could get reshells for this thing. Unfortunately, a lot of them aren't great from what I've seen on YouTube. So I kind of just decided to leave it as is. I might try and do some kind of restoration if I can find the stuff for it. But rather than replace it with some shoddy, replacement shell, I'm just going to leave it as is. It's just goes to show how old this system is. But this was the original DS, guys. This came out in 2004. So yeah, 20 years in November is going to be this handheld age, which is wild. Overall, the size, it wasn't too heavy, but obviously, down the line we'll see the biggest changes they made, which will lead us directly into 2006, and that was when they announced the Nintendo DS Lite. Now, I think I'll just say it off the bat, the DS Lite is probably my favorite of all the revisions. And one of the biggest reasons, of course, is that you can still play Game Boy Advance games on it, like natively, like actual ones, not, you know, off of a modded system, but you can still play actual Game Boy Advance games on it. One of the detractors for me on it, though, was always how the games kind of just stuck out a little bit. It's not terrible, but it would have been nice if they really kind of just got in there and made sure that you can fit it all the way inside. But the handheld, of course, is much smaller or thinner, so I could see them not having the space for it. But it would have been really nice if that was an option, for them to kind of make it to where it sat a little bit more flush. Then this would ultimately be the best one of all of them. Yeah, so the DS Lite is the system that I got. It came out 2 years after the original's launch. And I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful handheld that to this day, if you told someone that this just came out, they would probably believe you, because honestly, the quality of it looks so good. It stands the test of time as long as it's not scratched up or anything like that, but this system is flawless. And one of the things I really love that they did with this was that they moved the stylus section to the side here. That's just genius. Like, that's exactly where you want it to be. Previously, it having to be kind of up here, you kind of had to always look back and like, okay, you know, grab it. So the fact that all you had to do is play a game and then just click it out right here and pop it out, it was perfect. So the placement of the stylus was always great for me. They did move the position of the power to a slider, to where on the previous one it was just a button that you would press right here. So they moved it to a slider. I know some people have had issues with the slider not always working, but a big change was the brighter screens. Obviously, the name DS Lite factors in a couple different ways. DS Lite meaning it's a lighter system, but also light, like it's bright. This is a bright system and it looks great. The screens on these are amazing to this day, that, you know, 18 years later, they still look this great. And I have to say, the menu thing is still a bummer, because, you know, if you did have to go in there, not like you're going into this menu that often, but if you had to go in there, you then had to shut the system off. It wouldn't even restart itself. It literally would shut it off and you'd have to go back and turn it on again. But you had PictoChat, you had the DS Download Play stuff, which would work great with Mario Kart. So if you were playing Mario Kart, let's actually see if this works right now. So I have my other DS Lite here. We're going to test this out live, folks. So one of the great things, and obviously that was on this system, well, and it was on the other ones too, but whenever we wanted Download Play, we'd go there, and then we'd launch Mario Kart. So this one would be saying, looking for software available for download. So here we would go to multiplayer, create group, and normal. And I think it should come up here, right? Oh, okay, I totally didn't even read that. So it says, normal, compete only with players who have Mario Kart DS, or simple, compete with players who don't have Mario Kart DS. So there we go. Now we have our little waiting room here, and we can hit DS Download Play. Great music, by the way, in this game. Search, and there it is, perfect. It totally works. And there we go. So Rudy and Rudy are both in there. And this will go ahead and download the game to where you could then just play with people that did not have Mario Kart. Like, how, you know, how flippin' cool was that? That if you had your DS, you had Mario Kart, and you had a buddy that didn't have the game, but wanted to play Mario Kart with you, you could totally do that. Like, that was just awesome. I love that Nintendo thought of these kinds of things, because, you know, as someone myself that grew up, you know, when I was younger, that didn't have the ability to have all these games, if I had a friend that had it, that'd be awesome, because I'd be able to play with them. And vice versa, you know, if you had a friend that didn't have it, it's just awesome. And you can do this with, I believe, up to 8 people. So I've actually done this before with some of my nieces and nephews. I had some extra DSs that I took with me on a trip, and had them go ahead and play Mario Kart off of just one DS cart. And then there was 3 other DSs that were just doing download play. The only downside, of course, is you only play as Shy Guy, so you don't get to choose other characters, which is a little weird. I mean, if you're already letting them play and letting them race on the tracks and do all that stuff, the fact that you couldn't choose any of the characters was kind of a bummer. But again, still a really neat idea. I don't know how long this is going to take. Still a really neat idea that Nintendo did this, because, I mean, it's just awesome. And of course, like I said, this works on this system. This works on all the other DS systems as well. It's not unique to the Lite, but I just figured I would, for some reason, just start to highlight one of the cool features that the DS has, because, again, this is one of my favorite handhelds, the DS, and has so many great memories from when I was younger, and even now, getting to go back and replay some games that I maybe didn't get a chance to finish back then, or games that I never even had before. I think we're going to cancel this, because might take a while. So yeah, guys, so that's the Nintendo DS download play stuff, which is really, really neat. And again, I have to say, I think the DS Lite is my favorite of the bunch. And there's so many color options. I have this silver one. I have, obviously, the black one you saw. I have the red crimson one that's like red and black, and then a white one as well, and a pink one. But yeah, I absolutely love this version of the DS systems. And then after this one, this is all we had for about 3 years. Then Nintendo started seeing the rise in, you know, people wanting to take pictures and wanting to have a device that had a camera on it and such. So what they went ahead and did next was the Nintendo DSi. Now, again, forgive me for some of these systems that are beat up. I know I'll get guff for it in the comments, but a lot of these systems I got either through a thrift shop, a garage sale, a swap meet, or flea market, or on eBay like I did with the original DS. But, so forgive me if they're not in the best conditions sometimes. So I wish I had them all in pristine conditions, but you know, as someone that does this on the side, I can't afford all new systems for each one. But, you know, they still serve their purpose. They still work great. So this one has like some scratches on it. But aside from that, the DSi introduced a couple features here. So now we had a camera here, and then we had a camera on the outside that could be used to do some games and to take pictures and such. And it also introduced more of a Nintendo Wii style menu, which was really cool because the Wii was extremely popular around this time, so they felt like they needed to go ahead and bring that type of menu system to the DS system. So now whenever you launch something here, it doesn't turn the system off. If you go to settings, it won't instantly go back, but what it does do is it like reboots itself. So even though it says here return to DSi menu, if you hit yes, you can tell it kind of like does a reboot real quick and it starts up. But you had awesome options on this, you know, that you could play. You had your DSi sounds that you could use with the microphone and do, you know, wacky stuff with that. There's your DS download play that is still available on it. Your settings, Flipnote Studio. I never really used Flipnote Studio, but I know a lot of people really, really enjoyed using that. So that's on there as well if you like to do that stuff. The DSi and the internet is no longer available. Same with the DSi shop. But if you want to listen to the music, you could still launch it. It won't connect or anything. But if you really, really want to get that DSi eShop music, yeah, you can still listen to it here. That's so cool. I found that out the other day, and I was really geeking out about it because obviously this is classic music that a lot of people remember, and it still gets used a lot today in some videos and background noises and stuff like that. So yeah, just know if you still want to listen to DSi music for the eShop, just launch it, and you can stay at the screen and just have it there. That's that's so funny. Anyways, that's just me rambling. So we'll go back. And one of the things that a lot of people disliked, and it really didn't need to be removed because the handheld is about the same size, is that they removed the Game Boy Advance slots. So that was gone. And I mean, these handhelds are If anything, the DSi is slightly larger. But yeah, so they removed the Game Boy Advance slot. Honestly, my initial thought was, oh, they're removing it because maybe you're going to be able to buy these games on the eShop. I mean, now we have a store on the DSi. We can maybe download Game Boy games that are going to come out for it. You know, Game Boy Advance. Like, this is awesome. We're going to be able to do all that stuff off of this system. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We had some DSi games and a lot of shovelware titles. Like, you could buy I think it was like a Animal Crossing clock for like $2. A lot of that stuff actually still exists on the Switch, just that shovelware stuff that it's kind of like, why are you going to buy a clock when, you know, it already has a built-in clock here? Like, you're going to launch an app to be able to play or just to watch, you know, but the DSi eShop wasn't the greatest. There was a couple standout titles that came out for it, but overall it kind of flopped, which is crazy considering how much we all know the music so well. So it's like, what were we doing in there that we spent so much time, since we weren't playing a lot of games? But yeah, this one's okay. It's nice. It's a great thing that a lot of people nowadays like about the DSi systems is that it has a memory card slot. Where is it on this one? Yeah, it's right here. So it has a memory card for a regular SD card, and of course that leads you down the modding scene. So these were something that you could mod. Nowadays you can do Twilight. There's a couple other different mods you can do to where you can just have all of your games stored on the SD card. And you could also add Game Boy games, which is crazy considering Nintendo never released Game Boy games for this. So the fact that you can play Game Boy games on it is pretty cool if you mod it. And same with Game Boy Advance games. So the hardware is in there to let you play those games, to let you play these games. Just the physical connection is gone. So that's a route if you don't really care about playing physical games, but you love Game Boy Advance stuff and you want to have it with you always on the go. Then modding a DSi is going to be your best bet, because that's going to be the way that you can still play those games. Also, they kept the same position on the stylus. Again, sadly, this one did not come with one, so I do need to order some for it. But yeah, other than that, this system was very, very similar to the DS Lite, aside from the addition of the cameras. The buttons were still in the same place. These were still in the same spot. They did put the power button here again, removing it from the side. Not sure what the reasoning for that was. But the DSi is probably on my third of the favorite DS systems. I think the biggest thing is just the ability to mod it now. And yeah, you could use an R4 card on these, but a lot of times just doing the mod on this is going to be faster. So that's the DSi. It's okay. The camera quality is terrible, but you could definitely do selfie stuff and, you know, mess with your pictures and everything like that. And then the microphone for the sound, that kind of stuff. So just a year after the release of this, they announced the DSi XL. So that was going to be the big boy version of this. And I do have it right over here. So this is the DSi XL. Yeah, I mean, definitely bigger. It may not look like it's a lot bigger. You're like, oh, that's just a little bit on the corners. But the biggest change with this was the size of the gigantic ass screens. So, yeah, so clearly a huge difference. Everything else is the same. All the buttons are placed in the same location. The speakers are better quality. But aside from that, the DSi XL is just a gigantic DSi. And this is probably the one that a lot of people are going to navigate towards nowadays. Many reasons is the size of it, because it's gigantic and it feels great in your hands. And also the stylus still comes out here on the side, which is awesome. But the fact that you could mod these and just carry your whole DS collection with you, Game Boy Advance, DSi eShop games, you know, and Game Boy games as well that you can play on here. So This one's probably going to be the nicest one, the best screens, the brightest screens. And if you are going to play DS games, a lot of people say, well, just get a 3DS and you can play DS games on there and you can do everything on there. Yes, you absolutely can play DS games on a 3DS, but they do not look as good as they do on an actual DS system. If you put them side by side, there's a lot of comparisons that you've seen on YouTube at how some of these games look, and they look a little weird on the 3DS systems for some reason. I'm sure it's the screen size being different, but get a DS if you want to play DS games, just because it's gonna look the best on it. If you have a 3DS already and you don't really want to get a DS system, then that's fine. You don't have to, but play them on an actual DS and they're gonna look a lot better for you. But there's not much to say on this one aside from it just being a larger version. Everything is still the same. All of the same options are still on here. Does this still launch on here too? Yeah. God, I love that music. Anyways, guys, that's the DSi XL. I have this one here too. Unfortunately, this one's a little more beat up. This is the one that I did mod. So this one has Twilight. I guess I could launch it for you guys real quick to show you what that looks like. So when you install Twilight, it automatically will boot to Twilight. And I do have a bunch of DS games on here, Game Boy games, Game Boy Advance games, and such. So yeah, this is one that I'll carry with me if I know I don't want to carry a bunch of games around with me. But yeah, so here you have all your like DS games and stuff that you can play that are just stored on the SD card, which is really, really nice. And then if you go back, I know a lot of people don't like Twilight because the menu thing is a little bit more kind of whack. So you get GBA. And yeah, I could probably rename them better. But yeah, you have all your GBA games on here. So you can still play GBA stuff, without the slot, which is really cool. Yeah, but yeah, I think it's going to be the DS Lite for me, and then the DSi XL. This one right here, that's going to be my favorite of the DS systems just because of the size of it, having bigger hands. And then this one's just kind of more pocketable, or, a little bit more portable to carry. But yeah, here's Game Boy Advance games running on a DSi without the DSi slot. So if that's the route you want to go with getting a system and you don't care about like physical media, then get a DSi or DSi XL so that you can mod it and then do your business. You know what you guys do. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I think the clear winner for me is going to be the DS Lite. It's just a great system. I love the size of it, and I think, it's the one that I spent the most time with. That's the one that I always chose and think it's going to be the best one for most people that want to still play physical media and have Game Boy Advance slot on there as well. I don't think there's much else to say. I think I pretty much covered everything. If I missed anything, I'm sure someone will let me know. But again, this was just the DS systems. I didn't include 3DS because I just feel that's a completely different system. So I just wanted to cover these. But if you have a 3DS, you could do everything you need to on there that you could do on these, except like the DS download play stuff. But you could do everything else on there. So if 3DS is your choice, go with that. For me, it's going to be between the DS Lite and the XL, because the XL is just a gigantic, beefy machine. Anyways, guys, have a wonderful day, and thank you for watching my video. Let me know down in the comments, what's your preferred DS system? Which ones do you have? Do you collect a bunch of them like I do because you're a nut? But let me know what you guys think down there, and I'll be with you guys in the next video, maybe sometime next week or something. So take care, guys, and see you later.